Hello, hello. Welcome. All right. So, as we learned last week, we learned about divs. We learned how to set up our web page and how to make our web page make sense and make it look how we want it to look by utilizing divs. And we also learned how to create a style sheet from scratch very quickly. So let me bring this up right here. What we're going to do this week is we're going to add to that main page for our portfolio sites. And, okay, just wanted to make sure everything's working fine. So we want to add to that main page for our portfolio site. So you guys remember I drew out a little like plan here, a little diagram for our main page. Now, our main page, when we make an entire website, we have to think of the big picture. Like, how is the user going to interact with our website? How are they going to get forward and backward through the website? Because we have to make each individual page that they click on. So, I'm going to make a little map. And I probably didn't do this during class. But this map will help you focus your ideas and get to a point where things make a little sense. And so in Photoshop, I'm going to make a little map here. So we're going to say main page. All right. And so this is where the user is first going to enter into that website. They're going to go into that main page, and then they're going to click on something. And that something that they're going to click on is what we like to call a subpage. So that is a page that's connected to the main page. So if you go to this main page and it's like, oh, I'm going to click on this menu button here for the drawing portfolio. I want to see what this artist's drawing stuff looks like. It's going to go to a subpage, not that one, which will be like this one. Now, your goal for this week is to make your subpages, design them out, and then make a sample one inside a Dreamweaver. So you can see I've drawn out this example right here. I've got my title, I've got my menu bars like I've got before on my main page. That way I have some consistency through the website and the user knows what to click on. And here I have little picture samples that the user will go, ooh, I really like that. I think I'm going to click on that. That sounds cool. And so they'll click on that, and so they'll go from the main page. So they will have gone from, all right, what's going on here? Yes, rasterize. Okay. So they'll go from the main page to the subpage 1, which was this bad boy right here, to then what we like to call subpage 2, which is a big version of that image that they're clicking on, because again, if they're looking at your portfolio, they want to see the images up close and big and personal. And I always like when I do portfolio pages for people, I like to make sure that there's a description about the piece, tells a little bit of a story, gets that person that wants to invest money in your work emotionally connected, and of course the title of the piece. And yeah, so this is subpage 2. So let me go back to my map here. And so they'll go from subpage 1 to subpage 2. So I currently now have 3 web pages to my whole website. You can see how this can get very, very complicated. Like, you have to imagine each one of these little buttons right here has to have their own subpage 2. So you can also start to understand the amount of hours and the amount of time and the amount of work that goes into this, and why web designers are paid so much. It's because we have to make all this content. We don't get to just like push a magical button and poof, there you go. It's there. So eventually you're going to be building on like this little map here until it becomes super, super complicated and pretty crazy and comes down to only you understanding it. But laying out the map helps you keep your ideas focused and know what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be a fancy map. You can see I just went into Photoshop, I drew a line. You could draw it on a piece of paper. You could draw these little ideas or layouts for your page on a piece of paper, and you can lay them out however you want. However you want. Just make sure that you're willing to take the steps necessary in order to make that thing that you want to do happen. And if you want an effect on your web page that we haven't covered yet in the class, just let me know. I'll see what I can do about steering you in the right direction to making it happen. So the main goals for this week, you're going to draw out your diagram for your subpage 1 and your diagram for your subpage 2, and then we're going to make them in Dreamweaver. So let's go over to my buddy Dreamweaver here. Best friends. So you're asking yourself, like, well, what do I do? Because I've already made that main page, and now I have to make these subpages. How do I make them connect? Well, you're going to make them connect by using the inline CSS. I'm sorry, not inline CSS. Oh, it's late. Internal hyperlink reference that we went over 2 weeks ago. So go back to your notes. Remember when I was telling you take good notes? Because now you're going to come back to this stuff, because you're going to make an internal hyperlink reference, and your goal for the assignment, not only to make this, but to link those three websites together in some way. And so you'll do it with an internal hyperlink reference, which I already said, and I'm repeating myself for no reason. So I'm going to go into Dreamweaver, and I'm going to make a new HTML website. And just because this is an example, I'm going to call this subpage 1. I go create. Here we've got my code view, and I've got my live view. Go away. I don't need help. So again, I like to have my live view so I can see what's happening and how it's going to look in a web browser. And so we'll get started. So just like before, since we're just learning website design, we're going to make a 1,000 by 1,000 level grid, or div. I'm sorry, not grid. So I'm going to go into insert over here, or if you get the insert panel over here, you can go to insert div. And we're going to call this one .main body. Remember, keep it all lowercase. Keep it one word. I saw a couple people last class putting them capital letters in there and those spaces, and then you're wondering 10 minutes later, like, Mr. Malego, I don't understand. Why do my pictures look like a zigzag? Well, this is probably why. So, since this is the first rule that I'm making, first CSS rule, I'm going to need to make a new style sheet. So always make sure you come down here and double check. Make sure you're on the style sheet that you want to be working on. Because if you don't, you're going to make internal CSS, and then things are going to be a big headache for you when you go to make other sites. So I've made this new style sheet. I'm going to come in here, type main body. Click OK. It's asking me, so what do you want to name the style sheet? We're going to call this sub page 1 style sheet. Oh, look at me, breaking my own rules. Sub page 1. Okay. All right. There we go. You can see it's linked right in here. We're going to be making a box. We're going to be calling this bad boy, say it's 1,000 by 1,000. We're going to float it to the left. Very important. I caught a couple people not floating stuff to the left. And we're going to click OK. All right, we want to make sure it's at the insertion point, which you can see right here. It's right after the opening tag for the body. Remember, anything the user sees, it's going to be in the body. Any kind of function for the HTML will be up in the head, just like your own body. Click OK. You can see right here I've got my 1,000 by 1,000 div. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to drop this down because we're going to be working in between it. We're going to delete this little placeholder right here because that's annoying. And then I'm gonna start building on it, just like I did before, just like last week. So I make another div rule. I'm gonna call this one title. Look at me capitalizing again. Really got to watch yourself with this stuff because it will catch up with you. All right, now that I'm coming in here, be super careful. You want to make sure you come down here and you select your CSS page. If you don't, you're going to get that internal CSS stuff, and then you're going to be like totally confused. All right, so I'm going to make my title bar. I'm going to call this title bar. Okay. Making a box. Now, I'm going to go back here. I'm making subpage 1. And you'll notice on my subpages, I've got labeled out how big things are. You want to make sure that when you turn this into me, it's all labeled out. How big is it? What does it look like? You know, you want to draw these things out. So I need to know that, you know, my menu button here is 50 by 200. I need to know that this title bar here is 200 by 1K. I need to know that the main body is 1K by 1K. And these pick buttons are 200 by 200. The reason being is I'm going to be grading you based upon, like, how close is your actual site to this subpage drawing that you did. And it's got to be 70% close. If your site is more than that, you're not going to be doing so hot. Okay? So you can see I've got it all labeled. Now, because I've done this like a million times and my brain's about to leak out of my ear, I've got it pretty much memorized. So I'm going to type in 1,000 for my width for my title bar. Now I'm going to do 200 for the height. I'm going to float that bad boy left. Please make sure you do that. Click OK. Click OK. Oh, look at that. So beautiful. So we have our title bar here ready to go. We're now going to start doing the menu buttons. Okay, so let's go back. We're going to do insert div just like before. We're going to call this menu button. Make a new CSS rule. Again, I'm double checking to make sure I'm on the correct CSS page. Menu button. Okay. I'm going to go in here, and the width was 200. The height was 50. We're going to float those bad boys to the left. We're going to click OK. All right, so there we go. So I've got that there, just like before, just like last week. I'm going to come up under here, and just like last week, I'm going to go div, space. You can see it's already making suggestions. Class. We're going to go menu button, close out the tag. We'll say, I don't know, say painting. Do it once again. Div. Oh, look at me messing up. Class equals menu button. Again, it's automatically making this stuff. So we'll say, I don't know, drawings. It's already making it and floating it to the left just how I want it. The rule's already established. It's already made the rule. I'm just making another one, making another object or another div that follows that same rule. So, div, class, menu button. Teaching lesson? I don't know. And we'll do one more just to kind of finish it off. So we'll call this div, class, menu button. Okay, and we'll call it, maybe we'll do like a contact me page. Contact me. Cool. Alright, so let me double check over here in my live view. Okay, everything's looking tizzy. Okay. All right, so got my menu up there. Now let's go back to my drawing. Let's take a look here. So we want to get these pick buttons in here, and we want them to float in the center there. So let's go into Dreamweaver. So just like before, insert div. All right, so we're gonna call this pick button. We'll call this. No, we'll call this. We'll do a container for it. We'll call it pick button container. I'm gonna make a new CSS rule. Again, I'm double checking my style sheet. Go in here, pick button container, and click OK. Go into the box here. Now let's go back in. All right, so if I know that these are 200 by 200, so and it's a 4 by 4 grid here, we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6. Uh-oh, that might be a little big, but let's see what happens. And we'll do an 800 by 800 container for it because we're containing the other pick buttons. We're gonna float these bad boys to the left. Okay. Oh my goodness, look at it, it's sitting there. All right. Now here's the thing, and I'm gonna change the color of this container, which you should remember from last time. If you don't, go back and take a look at the old video. So make the background color. Okay, that way we can see. Now let's come over here. And so I've got a major issue here. Well, besides Dreamweaver acting crazy. Come on, Dreamweaver. And the issue is this little guy, I want my buttons to be centered under here. I don't want it like floating to the left and it's driving me crazy, this little space here. So let's go back, get a 50-50 look here. I need to go in, and so I know that this is 800 by 800, and I want this to float in the center. Come back into Dreamweaver here. Let's make sure. So it's bleeding up. I also know that this is bleeding over because we've done a 200 by 200 container or an 800 by 800 container. We only have 750 here. So we're gonna need to shrink this down. So let's do a little math here. So we only got 750 by 1K. So let's see. So let's bring up here. I'll bring up my calculator. So let's see, 600 divided by 4, 150. So if we do 4 by 4 grid of 150 picture blocks. So let's go back in. Let's go ahead and change this rule because we're not liking how it is. So here's our pick button container. We're going to say it's 600 by 600. Still not really. I want them wider. Let's go back in here. Let's make it 800. Oh, wrong one. That's height. Let's take that back to 600. Let's take this to 800. Alright. So, again, I want this to float in the middle. So the difference between the two here, because this is 800 across and 600 down. So the difference between the two and this, so 800, so we need to make sure that we have a gap on both sides that are equal. So we need like if this is 800, so we need a 100 pixel gap here and here to make sure that this looks right. So let me go into Dreamweaver. I'm going to open up my designer panel. And we're going to take a look here. We're going to see if padding... Oop, no, that's not the one. Ah, here we go. I'm going to do a 100 pixel margin right here. You can see it's pushing my content over. That's good. And then going back in the designer panel, I'm going to increase it so it's exactly in the center. So looking at this, so it's 600 out of 750. So we're going to say 75 pixels here. 75. Okay. So now I have this perfectly in the center, my container for my picture buttons. Awesome. Ready to go. So I've readjusted my rules. So now this is centered, and we now have our menu buttons, and I can start putting my picture button containers in here as well. Now remember, the picture button stuff is going to go inside of this. So in the code, it's got to be in between the opening tag and the closing tag. Okay? So just like we did with the main body div, where everything's kind of in between the opening and closing for the main body, I'm going to do the same thing for the pick button containers. But my plans from before, just like I told you guys, you might have to do a little experimentation and changing like I'm doing here. My plans from before are kind of screwed up because I can't have a 200 by 200 picture button here. It's not going to work. So let's figure out the math here. So we're doing 800 by 600. So let's go back to our calculator. Let's just say 800 divided by 4. So it's going to be 200 wide and 600 divided by 4. 200 by 150. That is going to look a little odd, but we'll try it out just for experimentation's sake. So let's go in here. Let's make our div. We're going to make dot pick button. So double check my style sheet. Oop, done it. Okay, we're good. Dot pick button. Right. Excellent. We're going to be making our div. So we're definitely saying that's 200 wide and 150 tall. These are good for like landscape images, I suppose. We're going to float these bad boys to the left. Click OK. And click OK. All right, so there we go. Actually, that's not too bad. I kind of like that aspect ratio. Looks pretty good. So now we've got that, and we're going to start lining them up because they're all floating to the left and they're inside that container. So just like before, we're going to go to div, class, pick button, close the tab. We'll put a 1 here just as a placeholder so we know where it starts. Just like before, div. And I know you're tempted to copy and paste, but I'm telling you right now, get used to just manually typing it so you get better at it. So you get faster. A little bit of training each time. And that muscle memory really helps when you're doing a lot of web design stuff. So don't copy and paste the code because then you'll understand it less. Go to. And because you guys are copying and pasting sometimes, you get a thing where you get incomplete code here and you're wondering like why stuff's going straight down, and it's because you're not manually typing the code in. Got to do it every time. All right, here we go. Now, a little shortcut, if you have a full-size keyboard, there's a little button on it called End. If you press that, you'll go directly to the end of the line, and then you can hit Enter. And it's something small, but it really helps speed things up. when you're making a site like this, because keyboards were originally designed to write code, and well, you know, Java and other wonderful forms of code that they were writing. The whole layout is meant for that, and usage. You know, like how much are you actually using a particular letter? Okay. Go. Still working on it. So again, I'm practicing. I want to be a better web designer. I'm manually typing it every time. It's annoying. It's boring. I'm not going to deny that. However, rogue code. However, it is good for you to practice. Like anything that's worth learning, it's not going to be instantaneous. If it's difficult, the more difficult something is to learn, the more useful it is, and the more valuable it is. That's why there's so few web designers, and that's why they get paid so much. Don't you want to get paid a lot? You can do this. Tell yourself you can do this as you type. If you're frustrated, go back and look at one of the old videos. They're there to help you. Check my numbers here. Oh, it's perfect. 15 of them. And I even asked you guys to find 15 images for your portfolio. Okay, so now we've got everything laid out. In terms of decorating, you guys should know how to insert and resize an image from last week. You want to make sure that your image size that you resize and adjust in Photoshop fits that particular div, so it looks nice and neat. You also want to edit these things. Make it professional. Make it clean. Find a website or a portfolio site that you like and try to base your work off of that. That also really, really helps. So, subpage 1 is totally done. I'm going to save this bad boy. Call it subpage 1. Okay, so subpage 1 is totally done, and what you'll do is you'll repeat this process of experimenting with code, doing your research with subpage 2. All right? Remember, everything we've learned, everything we've researched, everything we've gone through up until this point with code, you can figure out a way to get the look that you want with your site. Okay? Make sure you've got descriptions and titles. Make sure you've got things labeled out. I'm not going to be doing this one because I want you guys to do this on your own. I want to take the kid gloves off. I don't want to baby you so much because I know you guys can do it. I believe in you. All right? Don't forget your map. And don't forget how to internally link. I've showed you guys how to do that. You guys hopefully took notes on that. And that's it. That's it for this week. Make sure you get this turned in on Blackboard, and I hope you have a really awesome day.